Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how to easily download and install the Visual Studio 2022 on your Windows operating system. Especially, I want to talk about the requirements for installing the Visual Studio 2022. So let's get it started. If I open up the Google and search the Visual Studio 2022 requirements, then I have all of this information and the links available in the Google. At the top, I have the docs.microsoft.com. This is the official website of the Microsoft. Also, I have some other quick tips and tricks about the requirements over here, and you can see the hardware requirements or other links. Now, let's get started working with the first one, Visual Studio 2022 system requirements, and get inside the Microsoft official website. As you see, the Visual Studio 2022 or the Visual Studio 2022 has three main versions: the Enterprise, the Professional, and the Community. Later, I'll talk about how to install the Visual Studio Community Edition, so don't worry about anything. And also, we have two main types of the requirements for installing the Visual Studio on the Windows, and it is the supported operating system and also the hardware requirements. As you see over here, we can download and install the Visual Studio 2022 on all of these operating systems. The first one is the Windows 11 and this version. Also the Home Pro, Pro Education, Pro up to the end version. Then I have the Windows 10 version 1909 or higher, including the Home Professional up to the end. Also I have the Windows Server 2022, then the Windows Server 2019, Windows Server 2016. So I can easily install the Visual Studio 2022 on all of these operating systems. And don't forget, we have the notes over here, and it is the list of unsupported operating system. The Windows 11 Home in the S mode, and the 32-bit and ARM operating systems up to the end. You know what, we don't need to memorize all of this, and we can easily get access to this list by quick searching in the Google. So don't memorize all of this, and I want to talk about this for your deeper understanding and better result. Now if I scroll down, I have the hardware list, and at the top I have the CPU specification, and it is 1.8 GHz or faster, and the 64-bit processor, something like the quad core or better. And if I take a look at the taskbar, right click over here and come to the task manager and come to the performance, and here I have the CPU or central processor unit. Currently I have the octa-core CPU, and this is the speed of my CPU. And after that, we need to get access to the next properties, and it is the minimum memory or the RAM. So if I take a look, the minimum of 4 GB of RAM is required, and also the recommended memory or the RAM is 16 GB for better results and to increase the performance. So if I take a look at the task manager, and this is the memory, you can see it is up to 16 GB, and it is the DDR and DDR3 indeed. So it is great and amazing for working with the Visual Studio 2022. Then I have the next one, and it is the hard disk space. You know what, if you want to work with the Visual Studio, it's a really great idea using the SSD hard drive because of the increasement in the performance. And as you know, the speed of the SSD hard drives are really amazing and great. So if you want to increase the performance of the Visual Studio, don't hesitate to use the SSD hard drive. Also, you can use the HDD hard drives, but the performance will be reduced. So the minimum required space is about 1 GB up to 210 GB. Wow, it's really great and amazing, 210 GB. But it's not necessary to use this number. Why? Because the size of the Visual Studio or the required size depends on the features that you want to install during the installation of the Visual Studio. So the typical installation requires between 20 up to 50 GB of the free space on your hard disk drive. And don't forget to use the SSD. Then we need to use the appropriate video card drive or the display drive. And the resolution or the minimum resolution indeed is 1366 by 568. And the best resolution for working with the Visual Studio is the Full HD resolution. And it is about 1920 in the 1080 or the Full HD. Then you can start working with it easily and quickly. Also, we need to consider all the matters that is not important matter. Okay, excellent. Congratulations. I enjoyed it a lot. Now we learned the most common requirements of the Visual Studio for installing on the Windows drive. But what is the next step? In the next step, I want to show you how to download and install the Visual Studio, but it needs a lot of time. So stay with me with the next part of the video tutorial. Thanks for your time. Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how to easily download and install the Visual Studio 2022 on the Windows 10. So let's get started. First, I talked about the system requirements of the Visual Studio 2022. In this video, it's time to talk about how we can download and install it. So if I open up the Google and search the Visual Studio 2022, then I have the visualstudio.microsoft.com. This is the official website of the Visual Studio. So if I click on that and get inside the web page. In this web page, we can get access to the latest versions of the Visual Studio and anything that we need to work with it. So currently I have something like this interface or the design for the Visual Studio. Maybe in the future you can see another web page. So don't worry about anything and just click on the, for instance, free Visual Studio or download the Visual Studio. Also, I have the Visual Studio 2022 over here. And if I take a look at the links over here, I have the download Visual Studio button. And if I hover on that, I have 3 different versions of the Visual Studio: the community, the professional, and the enterprise. So the first one is the community edition, and it is great for the personal usages, and also it is completely free. And currently I want to work with the Visual Studio only for the tutorial or the education, so I can easily and freely get started working with it. And the next version is the professional. So if you have a little money and you want to work with the Visual Studio, so the professional is great for you. And if you want to spend a lot of money and you have the enterprise or the business, this is great for you, the enterprise edition. As I told you, I'm the teacher or the instructor here, so I don't want to spend any money and the community is great for you. So let's click on this easily and quickly. After a couple of seconds, everything will be downloaded automatically. So my download is done and I can get access to my downloaded file over here. And you can see the VS community up to the end. Okay, excellent, congratulations. Now my file is ready to be installed. It's time consuming, so stay with me. Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how to download the Visual Studio 2022 on your Windows 10. So let's get started. First, I talked about how to download the Visual Studio installation file. Now this is, and its version is the community, as I told you. So if I click on that, after a couple of seconds, I have this window. So before installing it, don't hesitate to watch the Microsoft license agreement. Then you can see more information about the privacy and something like that over here. After reading this, you can come to the continue and click on it. So you need to be patient for downloading the required files of the Visual Studio installation. Let's be patient. After a couple of seconds, up to, for instance, 1 minute, I have the main interface of the installation. So this is the new window and you can close this, for instance. So in this window, you can see the currently installed Visual Studio over here. As you see over here, I have installed the older version 2017, also 2019 on my current Windows. So if you want to install the new version, you can easily do it. Come to the available. Then the Visual Studio Community 2022 and click on the install. So this is, and let's be patient. And this is the same window like the starting one. In this window, I can manage which features I want to install on my Visual Studio. So I have same tabs over here, the workloads, individual components, language packs, and installation locations. Let's talk about the first one, the workloads. The workload indeed is the group of features or the features by the group that you want to install for your Visual Studio. Over here, I have the different technologies that are available and I can easily click and install all of these one by one. So if I take a look at the first one, it is the ASP.NET and web development. If you want to create the website using the ASP.NET technology or the JavaScript or the HTML, this is great for you. You can easily click on that. So this is. And based on your selection, we have some other features that are dedicated for this workload or this selection. Also, you can expand or collapse that. And at the top, I have the Visual Studio Core Editor. Indeed, these are automatically selected and include everything that is needed for running the Visual Studio itself. And this feature is common or the default features that should be installed at your computer, and you can change it. But you can change the features of the ASP.NET, for instance, to be installed or not. And also, if you want to work with the C# or the Visual Studio or the F# or with the .NET or the .NET framework for creating the WPF, Windows Form, and the console application, don't hesitate to click on this checkbox. So after clicking on that, I have the .NET Desktop Development and all of the features inside it. If I take a look, yes, this is the .NET Desktop Development, and all of these are available for you. Also, you can customize one of these options. For instance, select this or unselect this. It's not important matter. So personally, I prefer to leave all of this by default. And if I collapse that, so up to here, I have the Visual Studio Core Editor, the ASP.NET for creating the website, and the .NET Development for working with the C# with .NET WPF, and the .NET Technology for creating the desktop applications or the Windows Form and also the console applications. You can see the appropriate and required information over here under the title. And also, if you want to work with the mobile application and develop the application for the mobile using the Xamarin. And based on these selections, we have the total space required over here. And also, if you want to develop the application for the smartphone or the mobile applications, then you can select this checkbox. Then you can create the applications for the iOS, the Android, and the Windows using the Xamarin technology. So I have the appropriate over here, the mobile development with .NET, and all of this available for creating the mobile or the smartphone applications. And also my total space is changed up to 11 gigabyte. Then if you want to work with the Python, you can easily select this. If you want to work with the Python in the Visual Studio. Also, if you want to work with the Node.js, select this. And indeed, all of these are available separately and individually for the Visual Studio. You can add or remove these features one by one into your Visual Studio. And also, if you want to work with the Universal Windows Platform, then check this checkbox. Or if you want to work with the C++ for creating the desktop applications for the Windows. So you can select this one and check this checkbox, for instance, and the space is added also over here. Then if you want to develop the application for the mobile using the C++, don't hesitate to check this checkbox. And also, if you want to create and develop the game using the C++ for working with the Unreal Engine or the DirectX directly, something like creating the game engines, then check this checkbox. And also, if you want to work with the Unity, don't hesitate to check this checkbox. And after that, if I take a look, I have all of these options. And finally, if you want to develop the application for the Linux using the C++, don't hesitate to click on this checkbox, something like this. Now, if I take a look at the results over here, I have all of this. At the top, I have the common features, and it is the kernel or the common features of the Visual Studio itself. Then based on my selections, I have the ASP.NET, .NET Desktop, mobile desktop development, mobile development with the C++, game with the C++, game with the Unity, and also the Linux. Then based on these selections, I need up to 25 gigabytes of the free space on my hard drive. So let's come over here and let's uncheck the unused checkboxes. The first one is the Linux. I don't want to work with it. And also if I scroll up, the game with the C++, I don't want to work with it. And also the Unity. And don't forget the simple question. Is it necessary to check all of this? No, never. And you need to select this based on your need. And I quickly talked about the required features and the applications over here. And also I don't want to develop the mobile application using the C++ and uncheck this one. So until here, I have the Visual Studio ASP.NET for creating the web applications using the ASP.NET, the .NET, and it is the desktop application using the C# Web.NET, and the mobile using the Xamarin, for instance, or the iOS applications using the C# and the appropriate technologies. And finally, the desktop application using the C++. And as I told you, you can uncheck or check these options based on your needs. So if you want to only work with the ASP.NET, check only this one. And if you want to work with the C# and Web.NET, only you need to select this. And also if you want to work with the mobile applications, don't hesitate to check this. And finally, for working with the C++, you need only this one. But personally, I prefer to install all of this because I need this version of the Visual Studio in the different courses. So I have another option, and the default location is available over here. You can change it, or it's better to leave it by default. Also, I have two other options: install while downloading or download all then install. It's completely obvious. If you want to download all of these files, then install. So download all, then install. And if you want to download one part, then install it and continue until the end. Select install while downloading. Personally, I prefer to use the download all, then install. And this is. And also, what about another options over here? If I take a look at the individual components, these are the components that are selected based on your selection over here in the workload. So if I take a look at that, for instance, the .NET, all of these are selected based on my selections in the workload or these options. And also you can see all the features and the tools. Also, you can check or uncheck one of these options if you need to customize these features. But personally, I leave this by default because the default is really great. Then I have the language pack, and you can easily change the language of the Visual Studio installation. By default, it is English. You can change it based on your needs and language. And finally, I have the installation location. So you can change the default location of the Visual Studio installation, including the Visual Studio IDE. So it is by default over here and will be installed inside this. And you can see something like this. And my drive C is my Windows drive. Then the program files, Microsoft Visual Studio version, and the community. Then I have the download cache, and every downloaded file will be copied over here. So we need it later for upgrading or for editing the installation. I strongly recommend you don't change this one or even this, and leave all of this by default. Also, I have a really great checkbox over here: keep download cache after the installation. Indeed, the Visual Studio will download the required file based on your selection over here. Then save it inside this location. So if you want to keep these files, don't hesitate to check this one after installation. And if you uncheck this, every file after installing of the Visual Studio will be deleted, and it's not really great idea because sometimes we need to update or upgrade or change the installation features. Then we need to download all of these files from scratch. So for preventing any unexpected errors in the future, I strongly recommend you to check this checkbox and keep your files safe in the cache folder. So I have all of this information over here and also the total required space, and everything is ready for me. Now it's time to install it. So come over here and click on the install. And based on this selection, first all of my files should be downloaded, then the install will be started. So let's click on the install. Okay, excellent. Now my download is started and I need up to 4 GB of the files that should be downloaded. And it needs a lot of time, so we need to be patient. And as I mentioned previously, under this one, I can see all the versions, and it is the Visual Studio 2017 and 2019. That's all of these are currently installed on my Windows 10. So this is the new version and it needs a lot of time, and the only thing we need is patience. So stay with me. Welcome back. Now everything is downloaded automatically and you can see the checkbox over here, and also the packages or the features are installing one by one, up to 608 features that should be installed. So installing all of these is really time consuming, and the only thing we need is patience, patience, and patience. So stay with me. Welcome back. Congratulations, the installation is done successfully. Now it's time to see the miracle. So come over here and click on the OK. As you see over here, I have installed the Visual Studio Community 2022, and also I have some other buttons over here. So if I click on the launch, then the Visual Studio will be executed. But as I mentioned, don't forget to restart your computer and your Windows before launching or running the Visual Studio 2022. Also, I have the more button over here. Click on that, and here I have the repair. If you want to repair some files on your Visual Studio installation, then this is great for you. And also if you want to uninstall the Visual Studio or remove it completely from your Windows, then click on the uninstall. Also I have other options that currently we don't need to work with them. Also I have the modify button over here. If you want to add or remove some features to the Visual Studio installation, then don't forget to click on this button, the modify. And the same window is available over here as I mentioned during the installation of the Visual Studio. You can easily add or remove some features, then click on the modify and everything will be updated based on your changes. So come over here and close this one because I don't want to edit anything in my Visual Studio. Now let's come over here and close this one and also come to this and search the Visual Studio. So I have the Visual Studio 2022, right click on this and pin to start, and also I can right click over here and pin to the taskbar. Also you can get access to the uninstall from here, the uninstall. So let's pin to the taskbar. Now I have the Visual Studio, the newer version over here, and put it beside the 2019 over here exactly. So 2017, 2019 and 2022. Also as I mentioned, you can come to this and write the Visual Studio. So this is the newer version, right click on that and click on the uninstall and let's see the result. So come over here and come to the Visual Studio. Where are you, Visual Studio? Also you can write the Visual Studio over here and let's try my chance and let's see the result. So I have the Visual Studio, the newer version, and click on that. So the same window over here to uninstall, remove, or anything that you want. Now let's be patient and let's cancel this and close this one. Also you can click on the change and the uninstall. Let's see the results. So I have the Visual Studio over here, the 2022, and also if I click on the start, then I have the new version of the Visual Studio. Congratulations, we did it. Now everything is ready for me to get started working with the Visual Studio 2022. But don't forget, this tutorial is based on the common features and the standard controls and features and codes of the Visual Studio using the different technologies. So you can follow my tutorials with the older version of the Visual Studio, something like the Visual Studio 2017 or 2019. And don't forget, the version of the Visual Studio is not important matter. The only thing is important is your proficiency, is your effort, and is your eager to create your own world with the Visual Studio and the different technologies. It's really important and tricky, not. With the best wishes. Thanks for your time.